Welcome back to the second part of my talk with Harry Mitsidis, one of the absolute best travel people in the world, and number one on the master ranking on nomadmania.com. If you haven't heard the first part of my talk to Harry, go back and listen to that first, and you'll get a better idea of who Harry is. In this episode, we're talking more about his adventures, like when he was in the Philippines.
So I was just walking in the street, and suddenly this woman, this was about 10 years ago, so I was like 37 or something, and she must have been more or less my age. So she comes up to me, I've never seen her before, and her opener was, "Will you marry me?" Just like that, you know. And I mean,
when he was arrested in Yemen.
Were you allowed to call the embassy or somebody for help, or
no, I don't think you understand the situation. No, where I was, I don't even think there was a telephone, let alone calling anybody. No, it was pretty bad.
And even that, he still keeps a positive mind.
Wherever I've gone in general, I only have positive memories, and that's what has reinforced my desire to travel.
Welcome to the second part of my conversation with the legendary Harry Mitsidis. My name is Palle Bo, and this is the Radio Vagabond. This episode is brought to you in part by this website called hotels25.com. If you're a regular listener, you have heard me mention this before, and I can't say this enough. This is a cool website. It helps you find the cheapest hotel rooms around the world. Hotels25.com. You should try it out. It actually works.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
Let's get back to your traveling. When did you start?
Well, I mean, technically when I was 40 days old. Yeah. So I was on a plane from London, where I was born, to Athens. But I mean, unlike many other people now who seem to want to do every country by the time they're 22 or something, I started late. I was a very quote-unquote normal student, focused on my life. I did a little bit of traveling, but nothing very, very extensive until I was about 27, I think. Although by the time I was 27, I only had about 12 European countries left to do. So, I may be saying I didn't do much, but, here and there, I did quite a lot of Europe. But I think I started in earnest about 1999 when I was 27. And then very quickly it became my lifestyle, So, there was a very sudden move from Moldova, which I think was my first really weird country, to then Afghanistan, which is really way out. So all this happened quite quickly. Yeah.
And you did all the countries in the world by the time you were
36.
36. So those 9 years was really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I started knowing that I want to do every country. It wasn't like that. I just wanted to see more, and the world excited me. And I remember sitting in my room in Athens at the time and looking at the map of Moldova and really being excited. I'm going to Moldova, and okay, I mean, now Moldova seems so tame compared to other places, but I think very quickly I wanted to do more. And more and more. And then once I'd been to one country, I would think, okay, now I've already got an idea about it. I want to know another one. And then I think once I did Afghanistan, once I reached about 100, then I decided I'm going to try them all.
And now you're going to try them all twice?
Yeah, but again, I mean, this is me wanting to be more fair to the countries. So I think, the first time round, I think I did very many countries way too fast, especially in Africa. And now that I have more time and more experience, I'm very glad to do them slowly. Also doing the Nomad Mania regions, which means I'm doing them in greater depth. I've done 176 countries twice. and I've got at least twice, and I've got 17 left to do twice. But I'm not in a particular hurry for this, you know.
And those the rest, are they some of the hardest countries?
They're a mixed bag. So I mean, if you look at what is now considered hardest, I guess Syria is hard, Yemen is hard, and I've been to both of those 3 times each. So, you know, I was lucky to have done them, and especially Syria, I loved it so much the first time that I was lucky enough to say I really want to go again, and so I went again and then again before any of this trouble began. I have a few difficult ones to do again. I've got Libya to do a second time, and the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan.
Some travelers move very fast. American-born Alexis Alford traveled to all the countries in the world by the time she was only 21 years old. With this, she broke the Guinness World Record for the youngest person to travel to every country, and she did it in only 3 years. This is a different way of traveling compared to Harry.
Look, I don't want to judge anyone. I really believe that everyone has their own dreams and they should just follow them and do whatever they feel is correct.
Don't get me wrong, I have the utmost respect for what she did, but it's just she can't really have seen enough, and for me, I also get the fatigue when it's going too fast. I need to stay hungry.
Well, let me just note that she only did North Korea in the hut from the south, and I'm sorry, that doesn't count as a visit. So for me, you know, if you're crossing a line in the hut, especially there, because I've been into that hut, I did that hut from the north. So I did North Korea before South Korea. And then I crossed in that hut. And I would never even dream of saying I've been to South Korea based on this hut. I mean, this is really ridiculous.
When you say hut, it's on the border between North and South Korea.
Yeah, there is this line, literally a line. And above the line, there are 3 buildings.
That's also what they call the demilitarized zone.
Well, the demilitarized zone is a bigger area, which I think is about 3 miles. This hut is literally on the actual line. So on the one side of the line, you have North Korean military, and on the other side, South Korean. And what you can do is, I think they do it on alternate days. You can go into the hut from one country, and it's closed from the other side. So technically, you're passing the line, but you're still. I mean, that says nothing. That's just the line. And that's, you know, for me, travel is about experiencing cultures, ways of life, how people think. And I think there's a number of travelers who've done North Korea this way, or others have done Saudi Arabia at the airport in Jeddah.
Yeah, and I was just about to say, there's a general agreement in the community that a stopover in an airport, that doesn't count as a visit. I've been to Reykjavik, but I've only been to the airport, so I haven't been to Iceland.
I disagree that there's general agreement.
Really?
Unfortunately. We at Nomad Mania are very strict, and we've actually kicked out members who refused to accept our, let's say, stricter rules.
Well, you don't have the rule of it has to be 24 hours?
No. We don't go that far. I think... You know,
I mentioned Liechtenstein and Andorra before, and I've been there. I've definitely been there. But I didn't spend a night. I didn't spend 24 hours there. So there are some communities that say, oh, that doesn't count as a visit.
Well, in fact, the Danish Travel Club. I think the Danish Travel Club is the only one that I know of that specifically demands 24 hours. Let me put it this way. For me personally, as Harry, I would expect I would have 24 hours in the country. I would feel more comfortable with myself, you know, even if it's Monaco or something, you know, okay, you know, maybe not the Vatican, but you know, every country deserves 24 hours and the sleepover, say, but I don't consider it absolutely essential for you to claim that you've been somewhere, you've seen something, you've experienced something. Obviously, you can do that in less time. Yeah.
I did do a week in Monaco.
Oh,
without
without crossing into France?
No, I spent a week in Monaco.
I have never spent the night in Monaco, but it's in
But I had some. I had a radio station pay for the hotel bill.
well, that makes a difference. That's why I've never spent the night there. You know.
Yeah. That was back in the day when there was a radio convention in Monaco.
In Monaco.
Yeah. It was very, very nice.
Well, Monaco is quirky. They do lots of stuff, actually. Yeah.
No, the way I travel is sometimes I go fast and sometimes I go slow because I want to stay hungry and sometimes I just need to be in the same place for 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And I know some other people, they say I need at least 2 months in each place, but that's not more like the extreme travelers. That's more like nomads.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could travel like that, but I have too many obligations that keep me at home. And even though I can travel quite a lot, I always need to come back. Let's put it that way. So nowadays I avoid traveling more than, I would say, a maximum of 3 weeks without coming back home, at least a little bit. In the past, I've had some longer trips, but personally, I've never been one of these people who would go away for a year. I think in my mind, I flirt with the idea, and maybe when I'm your age, since you're
thank you.
a few years older, when I'm your ripe old age, maybe
if you're still able to walk and see then.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be in a wheelchair when you're this old.
No, I do see myself having like a year where I go around the world and do the places I like more. Where I kind of, I would like it to be more relaxed in a way, but at the same time, I experience these places better. Yeah. But for now, this hasn't happened yet, which is why I think, when people claim I am the biggest traveler in the world, I object. I think there's really people out there who have spent their whole life on the road. And so, okay, maybe they haven't been to the same number of regions, but if they've been traveling for 30 years all the time, clearly they are bigger travelers than me.
With this much traveling, there's so much to talk about. So I was wondering, what are some of the more wow moments on his journey?
Well, I think you will always be surprised by people, not by places. So I think very rarely has a place made me go, wow. It's not because I've seen so much, but a place is a place. It's just, it's there. It's inanimate, if you want. Having said that, I really did go wow at Iguazu Falls. That's really, really incredible.
Yeah, I was there 6 months ago.
Yeah, lucky you.
From both the Brazilian and the Argentine.
Yeah. You've got to do it from both sides. That's really wow. And then I also went wow at Potala Palace in Lhasa in Tibet. Oh. When I saw this structure kind of, and yeah, I don't know why. It was like I was hit by electricity. So these were my 2 wow moments, which I can really remember coming out of just the place without any interaction. But I think most of my stories always have to do with little incidents that happened with people, either in terms of kindness or in terms of something funny. I think one of the funniest stories was when I was crossing the border between Turkmenistan and Iran, and we had, in order to cross it where I crossed it, you had to take this ancient bus, which just drove you, I don't know, it was 800 meters or something, but you couldn't walk. You had to all get on the bus. And obviously I was the only foreigner there, and there were thousands very many Turkmen people, and I think they were people who would cross into Iran regularly to sell wares and buy wares and kind of traders. And I can speak some bad Russian, so there was this woman there, and somehow she was different to the others. There's always a curious one who wants to know you more. So she befriended me, and then out of the blue, she started showing me pictures of her daughter and more pictures of her daughter, and started telling me more about her daughter. And, that's when it hit me, in the end, most people in the world think in the same way.
A daughter what age?
No, the daughter must have been about, well, this woman was quite old. I mean, old. At the time, she must have been in her mid to late 40s, and maybe the daughter, I mean, it was an adult daughter. It
Okay, because I thought, is it a 2-year-old or
No.
or because
No,
then it was an adult daughter? I have a feeling where this story goes.
Yeah. But I think what was funny about this was, how proud she was to show me this daughter, but also how in a her own subtle way she was kind of, nudging me and, kind of sort of, would you like to meet this daughter, which I thought was very, very entertaining. A similar story happened to me in the middle of Cagayan de Oro in the Philippines. So I was just walking in the street, and suddenly this woman, this was about 10 years ago, so I was like 37 or something, and she must have been more or less my age. So she comes up to me. I've never seen her before, and her opener was, "Will you marry me?" Just like that, and I mean, and there I am looking at her and thinking, I was just, struck and was trying to think, how does one respond to this? What do you even say?
Can I think about that 5 minutes?
Well, I just looked at her and I said, well, why me? That was the best I could come up with. What criteria did you use? Anyway, so yeah, when one travels, there are a number of funny things that can happen to you, which are memorable. And of course, the other side of travel, which is memorable, is when you have problems. So, especially problems with authorities. And that does happen. And they make for stories which, in retrospect, are good stories, but at the time can seem really scary.
Yeah. I try to tell myself when something annoying or bad is happening, I get annoyed, but then I remind myself, okay, you're in the middle of a good story, and that's when I turn on the microphone, because I there's got to be something here. But sometimes when I'm in the middle of it, I don't see it until it's almost over, and
Yeah, well, I think it's human nature. When you're going through something difficult or annoying, you're kind of worried and you just want it to end. And obviously, there's quite a few such stories in Africa where you're stopped and you have unpleasant encounters. You've taken a picture of something you shouldn't, and kind of they become quite threatening, and you don't really know how to react. Yeah, and I've been in jail in Yemen, which was not nice, but it makes a really, really good story. So
what happened?
Well, I crossed the border illegally. I'm going to admit I deserved my fate. So, it was a time, this was before the Civil War there, but it was a time when it was still quite difficult to get the visa, and I wanted to cross in from Oman. And so I knew there was no way they would let me go that way into Yemen. So I just went, and I negotiated with the border guards. And they were okay, but then the police wasn't so okay once I went 100 kilometers inland, and I got into some trouble.
What do one think when the prison cell door shuts?
I thought of all the people I love. And it's funny, I'm really not religious in any way, but at that point I just had images of all these people who were important to me. And somehow I got strength from that. It's weird to say so, but really, I kind of imagined my parents and some really good friends and whatever, and I was like, okay, they're still on this planet, they're somewhere, and my thought was, I hope I get to see them again. And yeah, I think...
But did you think, okay, they're going to throw away the key, or did you think, it's going to be a few days and then I'm out of here?
To be honest, I really didn't know. I think there was I think when you're in such a difficult situation, all sorts of thoughts come into your head. And I think I was not 100% clear what their intentions were. I did know they were supposedly the good guys, so they were the official police, which meant, okay, I'm not going to be thrown to the dogs, I expected. In the end, we settled it. With, not European methods, let's put it that way, or not acceptable methods globally, but it was settled in a harmless way. But I think obviously I thought maybe they'll plant drugs in my bag and then claim that I things like that. Your mind starts creating scenarios, and I was like, well, if they do that, then they can accuse me of anything, and I have no way to defend myself. So I didn't know how mean these people were.
Were you allowed to call the embassy or somebody for help? Or
no? I don't think you understand the situation. No. Where I was, I don't even think there was a telephone, let alone calling anybody. No. This was dire. This was in eastern Yemen, in the last town before the border. It's an area where, the place looked like some sort of post-apocalyptic place. Anyway, the buildings were all half finished. It was pretty bad. So, but okay, the next day we all ended up eating lunch together, which I had to pay for, but okay, at least we ate, and I even exchanged Facebook addresses with one of the police people who spoke a little bit of English. So it ended up being harmless, and the people were not really that mean. But
what you're saying is you paid them a bribe.
Well, did I have a choice?
No.
I'm just lucky that my card worked at the local ATM, because if it didn't, I'd probably still be there.
But is that something that's happened many times, that you mentioned taking a picture of the wrong thing?
Yeah. No, actually, surprisingly, that's the only time I've paid an obvious bribe. Once I traveled overland between Sierra Leone and Liberia, and there were many stops asking for bribes, for gifts or whatever they call them. And, sometimes it's okay to give $1, because otherwise, you give $1 and you go, or you don't, and then you need to wait for an hour and negotiate and get angry and whatever. So, but on the whole, I can't say I've really had to give bribes. No.
I have a couple of friends, Henrik being one of them, Henrik Jeppesen, and Jakob Øster from Denmark, traveling into Conakry in Guinea, having similar experiences. And that's actually the reason that when I was going from Guinea-Bissau to Guinea, they said, don't do it overland. So I drove all the way back to Dakar and took a plane into Conakry. But once I was there, I really liked it, and I was walking around the city, and actually there was a place by the harbor where they had police officers guarding, and I went up to them and said, "Is it okay if I walk this way down here? I don't want to do anything I'm not allowed to." And I smiled to them and said, "Absolutely." and it wasn't until after I said, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I would draw attention to myself, but they were so nice, and I met a lot of the locals as well.
I think, based on what I've seen and experienced, the positive message of it all is that in general people are really nice everywhere. I have never, and these guys in Yemen, they were basically doing their job. Yes, I did cross illegally. Yes, I didn't have the proper paperwork. So, it's not like they did something mean to me. They locked me up because they claimed it was for my safety, and to be quite honest, it might well have been. This place was definitely not the safest. So, ultimately, I have never been faced with evil, let me put it this way. Wherever I've gone in general, I only have positive memories, and that's what has reinforced my desire to travel. And even in some situations where people are initially seemingly aggressive, I think if you can handle it correctly, you will end up smiling and becoming best friends. It's just a matter of doing it in the right way. I sometimes get away with saying, well, you know what, you think I'm white and whatever, but my country is poorer than yours. And they don't know about Greece. They've never heard of it. And I say, well, it's a European country where there's no work. Everyone is leaving the country looking for work. And sometimes I even joke and I'm saying, do you have work for me here? Maybe, and then they laugh and we end up, so I think a lot has to do with how you handle people rather than a particular, I don't think anywhere people are bad. It's just sometimes life is difficult for them and they might have some ideas which it's up to you bring them down, to dispel them and for them to think, okay, maybe not everyone
When we
is
come
like
back
you thought.
in a minute, Harry will share some more stories from his traveling. Produced by radioguru.co.uk, this is the Radio Vagabond. My name is Palle Bo. Stay with us. I got an email that I'd like to share with you. It's from Steen. He writes, "Hi Palle, I'm here in Nuuk, Greenland, and just had my dinner. I'm following the trip. It's always exciting. All the best, Steen." If you also like to drop me a line and tell me where you are and what you're doing right now, please use this special email address for this, listener@theradiovagabond.com. You can also send me a voice message on WhatsApp. The number for that is +45 40 105 105. You are listening to the Radio Vagabond, and that is truly amazing because there's so many choices out there. There are so many great podcasts, and you chose to spend some time with me. I cannot tell you how much that means to me. Thank you so much. Now, back to Harry in his living room in Chatham, close to London. One of the things you hear a lot from people who don't travel as much is that the world is a dangerous place.
No, it really isn't. I mean, look, I've been to every country almost twice, and I'm still here. I haven't done really, really risky things, but maybe I have. I've been to Mogadishu twice. I don't think it's such a dangerous place. I mean,
What's your recommendation?
Go for it.
Yeah, and be alert.
Well, look, you need to be alert on the tube in London more than most places. I mean, here we are in the UK, and we'd like to believe we're safe, but are we really? I don't know. So I think our idea of what is safe and what is dangerous needs to be reevaluated a little bit. Yeah, you need to be alert almost everywhere.
And don't go down a dark alley in the middle of the night.
Well, yeah, okay. I do not walk alone in African cities at night, for example, or in Brazilian cities, or, I know where some things are okay and where they're not. But, in Japan, I may well walk at 3 a.m. anywhere. But obviously, you need to have a bit of information. And where you know that it could be dangerous, you need to prepare yourself accordingly. And often, you rely then on local guides, on local expertise, and these people will usually take care of you. Okay, there's always a situation where maybe things will go wrong. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this can happen, but this can happen at home. Yeah. You could be mugged going out of your building. So at the end of the day, I don't think the world is dangerous at all. No. So I think we are very lucky and very privileged, and it is in a way our duty to explore and if you want, spread kindness maybe. I see it, to a certain extent I see it as my duty when I go around to places where foreigners do not necessarily go, to be kind, to let people understand that we're all part of the same planet, and in a way we're all interconnected.
When Harry Mitsidis travels, he likes to talk to the locals as much as he can.
I'm lucky because I speak many languages, and I can get by in a lot of the countries where one of the official languages is a European one. Having said that, in the depths of the least developed countries, no one speaks the same language. But I think you can always communicate with children. I think there's always a common language. You can just play with your camera and run with them and, hide behind something and they'll understand. I think children are a very good way to break the ice with other adults.
And I think it's so funny to observe children. They're the same. They're the same no matter what skin color, what culture. They're just as goofy and funny and laughing when you make a funny face.
And this is where you understand how culture affects us. So as you grow up, you become imbued with your culture, and that's when you start becoming more hesitant, or you're more afraid, or you're or whatever your culture teaches you. So yeah, I think children are the best way, and somehow I will never tire of this interaction with the kids. I just love taking pictures and showing them the pictures, and you just see the enthusiasm about it. It's like you've really made their day. And then often the adults come out and you know, their guard is down. I remember last year I went with two friends. We did a driving trip in Nigeria. And Nigeria really doesn't see any tourists, and especially where we went. We went everywhere in Nigeria. So we were in places where I really don't know when they last saw white people walking down the street. It was a small town. We ended up having maybe 70 children following us, with adults following them, like it was a parade. It was absolutely incredible. I have never felt this before, but it was great because you didn't need to speak the language. You were just goofy with them, and we were just taking pictures and screaming and shouting. It was just wonderful. This is in a way being a child again. Yeah. And I think these are very nice memories.
Yeah, and this is where you think, okay, this is what it's all about. This is why I'm doing this.
Yeah. That in those moments you feel it's worth all the hassle, all the difficulties in getting the visa, all the unpleasantness. You know, forget it. This is what I'm keeping from that. Yeah.
You're listening to the Radio Vagabond podcast. Before we continue, I'd like to remind you that I would be so thrilled if you shared it on Facebook or Twitter. And now, back to the show.
Where's the journey taking you next?
I'm going to Pakistan next week.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been to Pakistan twice. So
you don't need to.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But I don't have a particular plan in how I travel. I pick destinations at random, if you want, and then plan a trip. So this is a relatively short trip. It's only going to be 9 days in total. I'm going to mainly it's a drive through a lot of Pakistan that I haven't experienced yet. So I'm really looking forward to it. I love Pakistan. It's again one of the less visited countries, I think quite misunderstood, with a lot of interesting culture.
So is it almost like you're spinning a globe and then closing your eyes and putting a finger?
Well, not quite. I mean, I know where I still have Nomad Mania regions to do. So nowadays, if I'm going outside Europe, it's probably going to be to a country where I have a region or two left to conquer. But while I'm not only going for the regions, obviously, I try to generally extend the visit as much as I can and experience.
And then you told me that you're also heading to the far north.
Yeah, that's in August. So I expect, if everything goes well, to take a boat from Greenland to Arctic Canada. Yeah, that's 12 days on the boat. And yeah, that's very different from Pakistan, obviously. But again, I am a bit weary of boats and boat trips, mainly because usually when I've been on such trips, things go really wrong and we end up not landing, and all sorts of disappointments happen during the trip. I personally am much more comfortable with roads where I know, first of all, that I can escape, and secondly, that I am more or less guaranteed to see what I want to see. But yeah, I mean, obviously some places need to be done this way.
Yeah, and you have also, just for the record, been to Antarctica.
Yes, I have been to Antarctica. But this is the Arctic. It's
I know.
I have been to Antarctica. Yeah.
That's something that's high on most people's bucket list, I think.
Yeah, it's true. Look, I'm a sociologist, so for me, to be very honest, the appeal of these extreme regions is not that great. It's not that I don't appreciate the natural beauty. I do, but if there's no local communities, for me, something is missing. And in Antarctica, you only get research bases. And I mean, okay, yeah, you can say it's an interesting way of life, but it's not a way of life. The people don't belong there. They're just there for a year or so. So, I don't know. I still prefer traveling to places which have a human and a cultural element, definitely.
That was almost it for this episode. Remember to check out Nomad Mania and the Nomad Mania podcast. You can find the links in the show notes and on theradiovagabond.com. Before I leave you, let me remind you that this episode is supported in part by Hotels25.com. When you book with Hotels25, you have access to 5 million hotel rooms, and then you can use their best price guarantee. If you find a better price on another site, they would love to hear from you. See more about the price guarantee on Hotels25.com. Also, I'd like to thank you if you're one of the people that gave me some stars and left a kind review on Apple Podcast. You're the best listener I can have.
Harry, we could go on for hours.
Well, it's time for lunch. We need to go to the ship and trades here and have some good English lunch, you know.
Yeah, but thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this. It's really fun. Thanks.
My name is Peter Bo, and very soon we'll be back with the episode from Ethiopia. See ya.